Hey everyone, you're used to seeing really incredible stuff on our channel, and we've got one of our friends that has dug one of the most incredible rare relics ever found from the American Civil War. Only 4 are known to exist, and this is the only one that's ever been found with a metal detector. One of the ones, I'll give you a clue, that was found was on Jefferson Davis's desk at the end of the war. Stay tuned, we're going to go interview our friend and take a look at this relic and tell you a little more about it.
Get ready for something amazing this week on History Seekers.
We're here with Steve Phillips. I consider him a mentor and a good friend, and he's here to tell you guys about something that you're not going to see anywhere but here and on his channel. And if you guys would, go check out his channel, and I'm going to put the link in the description box below and also in our suggested channels on the front of our page as well. The show is yours.
Used to be a relic hunter. I was for a long time, found a lot of relics, and I also was a scuba diver for 52 years, and now I can't do any of that anymore. I wish I could. But one time I was diving with my, was using a Fisher Impulse detector, which as far as I'm concerned is the best underwater detector ever made. I don't know why they ever quit making them, but I found when I was down there, I was looking for whatever I could find that was from the war, but I tend to pick up trash so I don't have to hear it again. So I picked up a glob of metal that, this is it, just a glob of metal, looks like a piece of coal, and I just threw it in my bag just so I wouldn't be bothered with it anymore. And then when I got home, I had found I think a 12-pounder, and it was a solid shot, so I was gonna just tumble it in I got a big tumbler, and sometimes I just tumble stuff to clean it up, to get it started, getting some of the built-up matrix that gets underwater on things. And I threw in some railroad spikes, and had this thing here, I hadn't got around to throwing it in the garbage yet, so I threw it in there too and let it tumble. And then after a few hours, I washed everything off, and I was going to throw this in the garbage, but I decided not to once I looked at it and saw this funny looking piece here. I thought it was an automobile's part. It doesn't look like a artillery fragment, but I kept staring at that piece of copper there, and it looks like the underplug that would go under a Borman fuse. So I started thinking about it, and finally I started remembering stuff I'd read a long time ago, and I found out what this is, or what I thought it was. I carried it to my veterinarian and had him x-ray it, and it turned out to be hollow on the inside. So then I was pretty sure what it was, and went to the internet and started researching, and found out that it's a Confederate coal torpedo. And this book had been written just shortly before that by Joseph Thatcher, and his great-grandfather, or great-great-grandfather, was Thomas Courtney. And Thomas Courtney was a Confederate that was in charge of 25 saboteurs or spies, and these were very successful saboteurs, and this is their weapon. What this is a lump of coal made out of steamships or locomotives, and then when it was shoveled into the firebox, it would eventually get hot enough to blow up. It's only 4 ounces of powder. But the explosion that would come from this was absolutely huge, because the firebox blowing up would blow up the boiler, which basically spread the explosion all over. Ended up setting the ships on fire and sinking them. They sank a lot of ships, and I don't know how many locomotives and different things that were damaged with this weapon. It was a Confederate invention, and a great one, which they did a lot of. There was only 3 of these ever known. One of them was on Jefferson Davis's desk. He used it for a paperweight. He liked it. And he had a little paperweight. When Richmond fell, that one was on his desk. And I think it's up in a museum or something, maybe in Vermont. The Yankees came in and took it, of course. And then the other 2 were at the Confederate spy headquarters in Canada. That's all there were. No more ever, until I just stumbled across a piece of trash that turned out to be super important. The Confederates had a lot of different kind of torpedoes or bombs that they built. They had a time bomb that caused the biggest real explosion of the war was at City Point, Virginia, was from a real time bomb. And then they had the mines, or we would call them mines now, but they called them torpedoes then, that sank a lot of ships. But this little piece here actually is probably caused more death than any of the others, because I think that these are what sank the Sultana, one of these. Now, there's a lot of different opinions about boiler repairs and stuff like that, but if you think about how this worked, it's probably what sank the Sultana, one of these. Sultana was sunk in the Mississippi River when the firebox boiler blew up, sank the ship, killed over 1,800 people, which is more Americans were lost on the Sultana than any other maritime loss that we have ever had, including the Arizona at Pearl Harbor. And I think the reason I say that is one of the spies said he put it on there. Now, he was old then and in ill health, but if he had admitted it earlier, he would have been killed. They would have killed him any time for that. It was right at the end of the war, and those people that died were just recently released from Andersonville and from Castle Morgan in Alabama from the prison camps, and it was a tragedy, but that's what war is. It's a tragedy. And it was right at the end of the war, so it was sort of pointless. Earlier on, it would have been better for the South, but this is a great weapon, and it is a good Confederate invention. They were used later in other wars. I think the Japanese, the Germans, and we all had varieties of this that we used even up until World War II. So it was a pretty good idea. Confederates had to come up with a lot of innovative things, like the first successful submarine to sink a warship was a Confederate invention, and a lot of the little ways that they manufactured artillery projectiles and fuses are innovative, and just Confederates had to come up. They didn't have much in the way of manufacturing facilities, so they had to come up with some good ideas.
How much is the estimated value? I know it's probably hard to assess.
It's history. I have no idea. It's not for sale. Never would be, of course. I'll put it in. This will go along with all the rest of my stuff to hopefully to the Sons of Confederate Veterans Museum in Columbia, Tennessee. They call it Elm Springs. And we hope to put I have a large collection, and hope to be able to put it there on sort of permanent loan. I don't know values, and I don't really care.
Steve, about how many shells have you dug in your career as a relic hunter?
I've dug over 600, about half on dry land and about half underwater. Luckily, I've been a diver a long time and was able to go where other people couldn't go, and that's worked out good for me. A long time ago, I decided I wanted to learn about preservation, and so I didn't like the idea of my iron just falling apart, so I learned quite a bit. I've unloaded and preserved over 2,000. I think I've done more than anybody else on Civil War artillery projectiles. I preserved all the live projectiles that Tom Dickey had after he died for the Atlanta History Center, and for other museums I've done their work, and a lot for friends and individuals, and developed a lot of techniques with mistakes along the way. I've had a lot of them, so I've learned what works and what doesn't, and made a if anybody's interested in unloading, preserving artillery projectile, I've got a couple, 2 or 3 good videos on YouTube that you might want to look at. There goes into detail about how to do it, and I've learned some of they're not secrets anymore. I'm too old to keep secrets.